Podcast with Jensen Maydew, Tony Caranco, and your host, Wes Underwood.
And welcome into the Sports Timeout Podcast brought to you by Jefferson's. Chiefs win, so do you. 50-cent wings after the Chiefs win, and also our other sponsor, Robert's Integrative Dentistry in Joplin. Go check out Robert's Integrative Dentistry if you're in need of a brighter, straighter smile. Get your appointment today at 417-622-0404. Wes Underwood, along with Tony and Jensen. Welcome back in, guys.
Howdy. How we doing?
I feel like you had a big pause before my name. I'm a little offended.
Well, that's how long you were gone, it felt like.
What?
Both of you.
It creates suspense.
Okay, fine.
Did create suspense. That's what I was going for.
You
But
need to
also
add a
this,
drum roll.
also this new little dude that I got that like dances in our pre-show that I got up here. This little, I don't know where he's from. I guess he's got like a UK shirt on, but he's just dancing around like this. So, but
Good for
yeah.
him.
Before we buckle in, go ahead and make sure to hit that subscribe and like button. And yeah, we got a good show once again. Y'all ready?
Yep.
Right.
All right, we'll get right to it. Ghetto Tacos NCAA Top 25. Be sure to go get a 10% off coupon or just show up for your burrito orders today. And yeah, Mizzou number 12, Louisville number 13, Kansas 21, Air Force back in at 25. I mean, I like that. They're right at the end where they need to be. They're not further down. I don't like that Utah's still in it after 2 losses. I don't like Notre Dame. They're still in it after 2 losses. And they're 15. Like, they're still at 15. It's like they're just working their way down the ladder slowly. But, I mean, other than that, not much there. Do you guys like it this week, or does the team catch you off guard as well?
No, but I would say the whatever conference they're in the Big Ten, right? Big Ten East or something like that.
Yeah.
That's the whole conference is terrible in general.
We'll get it.
Well, I don't care if they get it or not.
In
I'm just saying
agreement.
it's terrible.
Anyone for you, Jensen?
I just like that Kansas State moved up, Louisville
Ooh.
moved up.
Ooh.
So I'm pretty happy this week.
Was Kansas State back in, or were they just on the edge?
It says they're 23.
23. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't remember if they had them like right on the outside or back in top 25. I didn't look that far down, but I guess I looked like right at top 25, and I saw that, who's still there? Air Force. So that just made me mad. But yeah, K-State's back in. I think they deserve it. They've had some pretty good games since their loss. So
Yeah, I agree. And I'm also happy to see that the Jayhawks are in. Go KU.
yeah, they're
Rock
back
Chalk
in at
Jayhawks.
21. They had a really good game against OU.
Yeah.
Really
Beat the
good game.
crap out of them. Shout out Rowdy.
He had some comments on that, but they're not too nice for us. So
Man, coincidentally, me and a bunch of friends all like texted him as soon as OU lost, just making his night even worse. But but he didn't tell me. I got told by like my friends separately that like we all did the same thing.
well,
It was
I
funny.
was on that wagon with you, so
Heck yeah,
it's pretty
it was a
funny.
good time.
Pretty funny. We go ahead and move on to the NFL, and we talk another funny situation. We'll talk the Raiders, and I mean, oh my, I mean, I love when I'm right. And Tony, you and I and Jensen all touched on this at the beginning of the season. I mean, McDaniel came in. It was a weird signing. Don't understand why it happened. Jimmy G comes in. They pay him the money. But now McDaniel's out. Jimmy G gets benched. And look, I dislike the Raiders, but I love watching them suck even more because, I mean, it was bad from the get-go. You get rid of Carr. which Tony, you didn't like that either, to be honest, as a
Right,
fan.
he's killing it with the Saints.
Yeah, he really is, and that's their loss. And then Jacobs didn't want to stay, but he did. Mark Davis said they were heading in the wrong direction, though, and I was like, I mean, you knew that when he took ownership, right? I mean, his dad passed away. Al Davis, respect. I mean, you put together some good teams early on in your career, but I mean, when you move the team to Las Vegas from Oakland, you knew that. When you fired Gruden, instead of sticking up for him and helping him out and find out what's going on, you all just got rid of him. But I mean, what are your all's thoughts here? Is this team, do you think they're going to rebound anytime soon, or do you think it's just going to be a revolving door over and over?
I think it's going to depend 100% on who they hire. I mean, they
Okay.
can get
Yeah.
another, C-level coach and have another C-level season.
It's true.
If they would have Gruden, obviously they'd probably be in a way better position.
Yeah.
Because the team was going in a drastic direction. But I do think they should get somebody. They should have a gamble on somebody. I don't think there's a safe bet right now. that's
Harbaugh
floating
out of
around.
Michigan?
No,
No?
I'd be more interested in getting like Matt Nagy.
Matt Nagy?
Get him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Give him
Deion
an
Sanders?
opportunity. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that's too big of a jump. But
I was like, are
it
you
would,
really on board with that one?
it would definitely bring a lot more publicity to the Raiders,
It would.
Yeah.
which and then in turn could probably bring better players just because he's there.
Yeah.
But I don't. But I do think he has a lot of proof. I think he's great for the camera.
Yeah.
But I will say that he still has plenty to prove and to learn. So, but I think he'd be interesting in the NFL, maybe
Yeah.
one day.
Maybe. Jensen?
Yeah, I just feel like the whole organization, like even as you were talking, I was like, this is just like a hot mess, like the whole thing.
Yeah,
So
Really?
I feel like they're at a point where it's either gonna like burn in flames or they're gonna be able to come back from this. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out.
I mean, they're three wins to 5 losses right now. 4 losses, maybe. Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It's their fate at this point. It's in their hands.
Right.
But
yeah, man, and them Chiefs, tough.
Disappointing.
what's tough about it?
Man, you guys lost to the Broncos.
Yeah.
Tough. And no 50-cent wings for us, so we all lose really. But
Wow. Congratulations, Russell Wilson, on riding on a sick Mahomes, and who clearly looked like he had the flu. And I mean, we knew what was going to happen as Chiefs fans when we heard that. And then, really, we should all just blame Taylor Swift, right? She wasn't at the game. Kelce underperformed again. He did get above the average of 47 yards, though. He did end up with 57. So good job there. But no, a lot of people were upset with that, actually. And we'll go ahead and talk that since we're on it. But a lot of people were upset with that because Travis Kelce went to the Texas game for the World Series. And I'm just like, I don't really feel like that should be anybody's business. Like, if he wants to take in a game before a game, I mean, that's his downtime. He can do whatever. He didn't look tired out there. It wasn't his fault they lost. I mean, dude had a good game, to be honest. He's still on track to get 1,000 yards again this year. And, I mean, he just wanted to hang out with some people and have a drink. But, people got to do what they do. And, yeah, I don't know. I don't really think it was him, though. I do believe that they got a lot coming up. I mean, they're getting ready for Germany Sunday. And, yeah, I mean, Tyreek Hill, all them, the reunion that is happening away from Arrowhead. And, yeah, I don't know. I don't really think it's his fault, though. I don't think a lot of people should put too much effort into that one.
No. Especially like you've seen this. We saw this, like, not to make a basketball reference, but like with Rodman, like
Yeah.
he would be out like partying all night before a game. So, I mean, it's none of our business, I feel like.
Yeah. People are
Yeah,
just
they're
making a
built
big deal
different.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just built different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no, I mean, I will say this,
Or
like
tough.
obviously, like as an athlete, you got to know, if you're, you're being healthy or unhealthy. But him being at a game, I mean, that he'd probably be sitting around at home anyways,
Yeah.
sipping on a beer if he wasn't at the game, right? So
Yeah.
it's not like I don't think he's like altering his habits either, to the point where it's actually hurting his career. And
Absolutely.
last I thought, it takes 11 men to win a football game.
It does. Yeah. Well, if you want to be technical, the whole 53-man roster. But
Right, but on the
yeah,
field.
11. Yeah, no doubt. For sure. For sure. Next up, we talk hockey and the incident that happened with Adam Johnson. I mean, everything that's going on here, just so many questions not answered yet, so many things not known. I mean, was it intentional? Was it not intentional? Should he be sued? Should he not be sued? Should the police be involved? Should they not be involved? I mean, unfortunately, if you haven't, then you're in a shell. But I mean, we've all seen the video of at least the aftermath or right when it happened, and then they cut it off because a lot of the TV stations, as should, didn't show the whole thing. But I mean, elsewhere on social media, people posted the video and uploaded it that were at the event, and just the whole chaos in this situation is just terrible. I mean, he's not the only one. I have seen people trying to defend it, saying that this is the worst incident that's happened, but he's not the only one that's had this happen. A former guy that played hockey in the NHL, he had it happen, but he had time to react and time to do something. And Adam Johnson just, I mean, his natural instinct was to move the head up, and that's what he did. But the other guy, and I don't remember his name, but he had it happen to where it slit, and he's still got the scar. He's got the story. He's like, I lost about half my blood that night. And I was like, and you walked away from that, like, wow. And it was close to the artery that was terrible, but he ended up coming out of it in a good way. But unfortunately, Adam Johnson, rest in peace for him, did not come out the same way. And it was just, I guess, in the reaction time is what this other player was saying, just things that people could have done. And, but yeah, I don't know. What are your all's thoughts on this? I mean, it's terrible to talk about, but
Right. So to me, man, it's obviously the situation sucks. The family wants justice.
yeah,
Uh, they came out saying um, that they understand that it may have not been done with the intent to kill, but it was definitely done with the intent to hurt him, um, or at the very least, throw him off his game.
yeah,
So, um, whether I don't think it was like again like not intentional to kill, but so it's a terrible situation, and unfortunately, for him, he's going to have to face the consequences. And I hope the police does get involved because there should be some sort of justice for the family,
yeah,
and because money's not going to do anything for him, like they may as well sue, but at the end of the day, that's the family is all you know not they lost a family member that day or that night.
yeah. Not even just the family, just the whole community of NHL and hockey in general. I mean,
Yeah.
the people all touched out. They all had their moments of silence, definitely deserved. And I mean, it's just one of those things. It's like, oh man, like we really witnessed that. That's horrible, and it should never happen. But
Well,
unfortunately, it does. So
Right. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm torn. Obviously what happened was tragic and should never happen. Um, but also being on, you know, the other side of it. I mean, I'll be honest, like I have whenever there's a player that's kind of like roughing me up on the court, like I've like thrown an elbow, not to, like hurt them, but like to
Yeah.
hurt them. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so like I I don't think that that's terrible of the other player to do that because we all do that. We're competitive. It just is like the result of that is what was the tragic thing.
Yeah.
So by saying that his intent was to like hurt him, I mean like it might have been. I mean, I feel like we've all been there. But the level of hurt obviously is tragic, but
It was. Yeah.
I kind of feel for him because, I'm sure he feels so guilty and so horrible.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think just, I don't know. It's a tough situation, and I'm curious to see how NHL is gonna like respond to this for future things. So
There's already talk of from the fans just in general getting like maybe neck guards to have around them. I mean, it's going to be uncomfortable, but would you rather be cut or would you be protected and have that uncomfort? Stuff like that. But they're going to come up. I mean, even with like maybe the bulletproof vest material that goes up
Kevlar.
around your neck. Yeah, Kevlar, and just have it around there. And I mean, some teams in other countries, I believe, actually wear vests like that underneath just to go around their neck so they are protected in situations like that. And I know some professional ice skaters, because of the rotation of the blade and their stunts that they do together and like couples and all that stuff, doubles, when they go up to do their spins, I mean, those people have been cut too. I mean, they've had multiple cuts, and for them to not, I don't know. I feel like that one actually is kind of on the NHL for not having that material. Like you've got the pads, you've got the helmet, you've got the face mask, but why nothing around the neck? I mean, again, like I said, this isn't the first time it's happened. It's just the first time
Right.
it's been seen viral, because the other one happened before social media and this one happened during social media. So now you get all that extra attention and people are like, oh, wow, hey, why don't they have these protocols in place? And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, people probably asked that a few years back whenever that happened. So I don't know. It's one of those, like we said, freak accidents. I don't really think there's an explanation to how they can handle it at this point, but they can do good as long as they choose to go the right direction and not like just take it lightly and shove it under the rug. So
Right.
there's going to be a lot to come from it.
I think the NHL, needs to obviously dish out some sort of money to the family, which I'm sure they
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
But I think also honoring, the player with and future players with, some sort of protective, equipment.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be necessarily Kevlar. It can be something thinner, maybe
Yeah.
like something with like metal or whatever, that
Mhm.
just it doesn't penetrate.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, I had the privilege of catching up with a couple of OGs up in Kansas City, and one of those being in the MLB. I got to talk World Series and some awesome moments in Kansas City Royals baseball with the former VP of communications up there and Mike Swanson. And then I got to talk Sporting Kansas City with Chad Smith of the Kansas City Soccer Journal. So, yeah, here are those. And then we'll come back and we'll do the local sports update. And we bring in former Royals VP of Communications and Broadcasting and current advisor to the Royals, Mr. Mike Swanson. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Wes. How you doing?
Oh, I'm sad baseball's over. I mean, I'm a football guy too, but when baseball ends, it's just really sad because it goes on forever. But then once October hits, it's like, all right, the good stuff's about to happen. But you also get to see a lot of good stuff before that too. But I mean, it's kind of one of those catch-22s. But yeah.
It is. But for those of us who are in the game, especially as long as I was, that last out of the season, whether you're in it or not, when that last out of the season is recorded, it's time to kick the shoes off and kick back for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, we'll go ahead and do that right now. And first off, I want to touch on the World Series that ended on Wednesday in favor of the Rangers, and that leads to my question. You kind of have ties to that organization with a former player of yours and Chris Young, who took over an almost complete rebuild in 2020, got the new stadium, pretty much a new team, had a young one at that, and then added a few core guys this year. How happy were you for him and his guys there?
Chris isn't the only former player I had in that organization. I had Bruce Bochy as a player back in the 80s in San Diego. So that's how old I am and how long I was in the game. But in Chris's case specifically, I mean, I got to believe he's become a trivia question, because just 8 years after winning a World Series with the uniform on, he wins a World Series sitting in the top chair upstairs.
Yeah.
And, I always knew that Chris was, when the players are smarter than the PR guy and the upper staff, you got a problem right there. You got a winner and somebody who's brilliant. And he came out of Princeton. When his playing days were over with, I get a call from the commissioner's office asking me if I thought that Chris Young might be interested in going to work in the commissioner's office. And I said, I don't know if he's interested, but he's a perfect guy for it. And he ended up going there for a while. They interviewed him, talked to him one day when he came up to the office, and he loved the idea. But he missed Texas and got back down to Texas and got this opportunity. And, he brought along another pretty close friend of mine in Dayton Moore as an advisor.
Yeah.
There's already a pretty good staff in place there as well that John Daniels had put together. So, everything was rolling in the right direction. Chris jumped in at the right time. And to your point about bringing some players in, you go out and you get, the old adage about baseball up the middle. You need a strong catcher, you need strong pitching, you need strong infielders up the middle, you need a good center fielder. Well, you go out and get Marcus Semien and Corey Seager in one fell swoop. Okay, there's your up the middle.
Yeah.
And then they strengthen the pitching staff going into this year by getting Evaldi, getting DeGrom, even though he couldn't help, getting Scherzer to help him down the stretch. He couldn't stay. DeGrom, I said, couldn't help. He couldn't stay healthy.
Yeah.
But, the attempt was there to make it that strong up the middle. So he did it right. And, it's again, who's hot at the right time.
True.
And I do think the Rangers, and hearing everything I've heard, I obviously wasn't there, but hearing everything, all the rhetoric over the last couple of weeks, they were really disappointed losing that last game of the season in Seattle and having to fly 6.5 hours to Tampa. When if they just win that game, they get a couple of days off and they get to play from the top spot. And seeing Nathaniel Lowe talk about that last night and other times during the series, I think it was like a fighting charge for them, losing that game and spending the longest flight you can possibly have in baseball is from Seattle to Tampa Bay, unless you're going to Miami to play the Marlins. And there's a lot of time there to bitch and moan about what just happened.
Yeah.
And I think they did. And then they never lost another road game from that point forward.
Yeah. And we all saw it. And kind of a special one for you here too. You have ties to Arizona as well. You were there for their PR director back during the Randy Johnson, Mark Grace, Kurt Schilling days. Even more than that on players, but there's a lot of good ones that went through there. But to throw it back there a little bit, but you also saw that team go to the World Series in your 9 seasons there. How did it feel to see them back in the World Series after that long of a drought?
It was cool. We went, the first World Series was not necessarily how baseball has it planned out for expansion clubs.
Yes.
Our first year we were average. We were an expansion club. That's who we were. Our second year we won 100 games. Unheard of. But ownership went out and got Randy Johnson, got Steve Finley, got Luis Gonzalez. We had an all-star team for our second season. And then in 2000, we didn't really play up to the same level that we played in 99. And then in 2001, we caught fire early and never looked back. And the only thing that interrupted our season was what interrupted the world, was 9/11.
Yes.
And, to come back after the 9/11 break and play as well as we did, and then get into the postseason and play as well as we did. And as luck would have it, we were probably the only people who were pulling for the Arizona Diamondbacks in that World Series were fans of Arizona and the New York Mets fans.
Yeah.
Because Mets fans and Yankee fans, they don't care. Whoever's playing the other club is their favorite team. And we heard about that when we were there. But, you know, I understand where the world wanted the Yankees to get a win there.
Yeah.
But I also understand what competition's all about. And I'm glad we prevailed at the end. But it was enjoyable, like I said. But then the team fell off. You know, all that talent that we did have there was aging, to be nice about it. And we didn't have a lot of young players in the system. So it tailed off rather badly. They made a couple of playoff appearances in the other time I was gone, but then to get there this year with this young group. And I sent a text to my old roommate, who's their head of team travel and clubhouse. I sent a text to him today, you know, reminding him that young core group that played as well as they did this year, it reminded me a lot of our 2014 team.
Yeah.
And we learned a lot in 14. We learned how to compete. We learned how to win, which is a hard thing to learn. You know, you can say you want to win, but you got to learn how to do it. And we learned how to win. And then they came back even hungrier in 15. And I think that's what this team's going to do in 24.
And so, I mean, it's over now. World Series is done. You just mentioned that. And my next question was going to be with the Rangers too. I mean, but I'll go both here. And I kind of thought about it, but you just confirmed it there. But do you see similarities between the Rangers team also? I mean, to that Royals team that won back in 2015, as well as, I mean, back in 14, kind of the young core group of guys. But like you said, they went out and got the veterans, kind of like what we did the Royals with Cueto, and got a few more guys in the bullpen.
Cueto and
there.
Zobrist. Cueto and Zobrist
too,
were the two key guys. Yeah. Yeah, I do. And you know, they've set themselves up now. If Jacob deGrom can get back on the mound next year.
Yeah.
Evaldi proved that you know, he's a gamer. He didn't have that many great starts during the season. He had good starts during the season.
Yeah.
But he was virtually unhittable in the postseason. And that's a guy you want on your club, you know, because October baseball is as fun as seasonal baseball is. October baseball is you find out who can light a fire and who can carry your club. And you don't know until it starts. And that's what, again, backing up to Arizona, that's what was so impressive about the Diamondbacks. You just didn't know. They won 84 games during the regular season, which is a good year. I mean, I wish my Royals right now could get to 84 wins and build from there right now. And we will at some point. But, you know, they won 84 games in the regular season. And I won't say they backed in. They got in it.
Yeah.
But who thought they would go to, you know, the places they went and just start knocking people down? And the next thing you know, who did have $1 on them beating the Dodgers, sweeping the Dodgers in a 3-game series, and you can buy a new house, because that's probably what the odds were. And it you know, for them to be able to do that, and now they just go out and hibernate for a while. Don't get too caught up in reading the papers. Don't get too caught. Just work out, do your work, and get ready to go in spring training next year. And that's the same thing with the Rangers. You know, the one thing about they've got the one secret weapon that I brought up a few minutes ago. Number 15, Bochy. He's just he's as throwback as they come. He's as mellow as they come. Being a former player who was an average at best player. I mean, he was our backup catcher in San Diego for the years I was there behind Terry Kennedy. And he's just as laid back as you want to be. The only reason he's still not managing the Giants is because they wanted to kind of take over the team from upstairs.
Yeah.
That's not who Boch is. Boch didn't get fired, but he didn't really leave on his own accord. He was basically told how the team was going to be operated, and he's like, I'm good. I'll go see my grandkids. But he never really said he didn't want to be in baseball. And when Chris brought this opportunity to him, he took it.
Yeah. It's a good one at that too, for sure.
Yeah.
And
so I wouldn't be, don't fall out of your chair next year about this time if the Rangers are playing in a game 4, 5, or 6 around this day in October, because it won't shock me.
Yeah, absolutely. And then next, we kind of talked about it there and touched on it, comparison with the Royals, but I'd like to talk Royals if we may. And
sure.
This team is young again, very talented, just a few spots that needed to be addressed. I mean, fans said pitching, and then a little bit more veteran leadership there, because I mean, you got Salvi, great leader, fantastic leader, But then maybe out in the outfield, bullpen. I mean, you had Greinke. Greinke's been great. Does he stay longer? We don't know. He could. He might not. But that being said, I mean, have you kind of heard any rumblings of other moves that could potentially be happening this offseason?
I honestly, I haven't. I haven't been close enough to the situation to hear any. I mean, the one thing I'll tell you now is Bobby Witt goes into his third year.
Yeah.
He's not exactly the aging veteran, but he's now seen it all in 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, in 2 seasons, he's done it, and he's doing it better every day. He is not going to settle for what all the numbers he put up this year. The kid's not going to settle.
No.
And knock wood, if he stays healthy, he's going to put up some ridiculous numbers over the next few years, because that's just how good he is.
Yeah.
So let him anchor that infield, and he's going to do it well. I don't, whoever they play everywhere else on that infield, I think Michael Massey, if given the opportunity, and I know his bat's going to have to be in the lineup to do it.
Yeah.
But Michael Massey's going to win a Gold Glove on that infield at some point, a big league Gold Glove. He won one in the minors, which is a tough thing to do considering the number of players that play in the minors. And I think Miguel Garcia is going to be, or not Garcia, it's Michael Garcia. Sorry, Miguel Garcia worked in our bullpen. But I think Michael came in out of nowhere. Nobody was expecting this. When he came in and he hit like crazy.
Yeah.
Getting Vinny back at first base next year is going to be huge. Getting a healthy Isbell out there. He struggled from the start and then finally got out there to play. I'm intrigued by Drew Waters being a switch hitter. I have a lot of intrigue. And then you take this thing to the mound, and that's where some guys, I mean, just to be blatantly honest, and as honest as I can, as much candor as I can give on it, guys that I really know and like a lot.
Yeah.
Brady Singer's going to have to step up, and I think he's capable of it because he's got the stuff. Chris Bubich being healthy, coming off Tommy John. It's going to take him a little while to get started this year. I don't think he's going to step out of spring training and be firing in the rotation. I'd be very surprised if he is.
Yeah.
But get him back out there because he's I couldn't have gotten into Stanford. I couldn't have gotten into Stanford to see a football game. I didn't have the IQ to get in there. And he had the IQ to go to school there and play.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's something to be said for Stanford athletes. They're pretty dang good and smart. And who am I missing? Daniel Lynch. He's throwing again right now. And Lynchy, selfishly, because I know Daniel well, I know Brady well. I thought Daniel and Brady would be the two would be the right-left combination that would carry this club going forward. And I still think they have a chance of doing that. I think Daniel, again, health has been an issue with him since day one. Yeah. If he gets stronger and stays healthy, and then somebody, where the team might have to go out and get somebody is in that back end of the bullpen, because we lost a lot of games this year. We had leads. We had opportunities to win a bunch of games this year. I'm not going to say win enough to contend.
Yeah.
But we had a ton of leads this summer, and they got away after the 6th and 7th inning. So go out and solidify that back end of the pen. And, I'm not going to say we're going to be sitting here this time next year with a trophy. But once you show you can compete, and that's what happened this first lap I was with the organization. I came in 2007, and it was so devoid of talent. It was sad. I was with 2 expansion clubs that had more talent than the Royals club in 2007.
Yeah.
And, we had basically there were major leaguers on the team, and I'm good guys too, Reggie Sanders, Mike Sweeney, guys like that. But, we had Sweeney, we had Zach Greinke, and Alex Gordon was coming up, and Billy Butler. We thought we had a good one in Billy, and once he got to the big leagues, he showed he could hit in the big leagues.
Yeah.
He was a one-trick pony. He could hit, so you couldn't do a lot with him other than DHing.
Yeah.
But Dayton and his crew went out, and from the first draft with Mike Moustakas, and then all the way through after that, there were players that were brought in those drafts that got us to 13 where we competed. And then 14 where we really competed and got to game 7, and then 15 when we were all running off the field in New York. And somebody pointed out to me today, which I thought was kind of funny, because I posted a picture last night on Twitter of me with the trophy in bed at 5 a.m. at our hotel. And somebody said, "Did you realize that the only two teams you beat in the World Series were both New York teams?" And I'm like, I think I knew that. I mean, I knew that, but I never put two and two together.
That's
But
awesome.
I thought that was pretty cool, actually, especially
Yeah.
being from Kansas City and getting to beat the Yankees in 01, because as much as I hated the Yankees growing up, it was fun
Yeah.
to knock them out.
I still can't whenever I go out to the K and I see like they just take all the good seats and they sit down there. And then when you're trying to communicate with your players and they pop up, I had a ball taken from me that was coming straight to me because I had a sign up there and it was for O'Hearn while he was out there. Good guy, love that guy. And
Really good guy. I'm
threw,
happy for
threw
him
me
this
the ball
year.
too, huh?
I was happy for him this year. Very happy for him this year.
Oh yeah. He had a great year. Great turnaround.
He's up for comeback player of the year. And the only
Exactly.
reason I found that is odd because I don't know what he's coming back from. One of the reasons that he was dealt was because he didn't have great numbers here, but I always knew he could play. I always knew he could hit, and I'm glad he got the opportunity.
Absolutely. But now we go ahead and get a little bit more personal. And last year you get inducted in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. What was that moment like for you, and how much does that accolade mean to you after your career that you've had?
Wes, it's borderline impossible to even put into words because one of the best parts about the job I had for 43 years was I was behind the scenes. I didn't have a costume with a name and number on the back.
Yeah.
Very few people really knew who I was. They just knew that the team had a PR guy. I mean, I say very few people. I got a lot of friends in the game, but it wasn't me out there out in front. I was getting guys to do things and represent the organizations that I was with at the time and represent them well. And when I got the call from Gerald Andrews on a December night, 21, asking me if I would be available to go to Springfield in February to be inducted in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, I almost jerked the car into a ditch. I didn't know how to react to it. And then I get there, and the night I'm inducted, they also induct Matt Holliday and Ken Morrow, who was with the Miracle on Ice team in 1980. And I'm sitting between Holliday and Morrow on the dais. And I go up to do my speech. They introduced me to a video. John Shambi, Boog Shambi was kind enough to present me. And they do the video, and I get up, and you're allowed 3 minutes to talk. Well, I wasted 30 seconds of it by saying, I don't know what the hell I'm doing up here. I'm being fanboy between Miracle on Ice and MVP here, and I'm shooting the breeze with them. I have no idea what I'm doing sitting between them, and now I've got to give a speech to y'all. And it broke the ice a little bit too, because it just meant the world to me that somebody cared, somebody noticed. Because I really thought, do my job and be happy. I made a lot of friends in the game, but that was it. And funny story, I got inducted into the Raytown School District Hall of Fame a couple years before. And I gave a speech and thanked the first two people I thank every time I give a speech about my career is my wife and my daughter, because we had our daughter in '99, and baseball, we were in the World Series 2 years later. Yeah. And I love on my wife for being both mom and dad for a major part of my daughter's life, and but I got my daughter involved in it enough, loving it enough, that this is what she wants to do, which I think it makes me feel pretty good. But when I stood up in front of the people at Raytown after thanking my family, I said, hey, where and when was the fire? And everybody's looking at me like I've lost my mind. And I said, there had to have been a fire to burn the school records down from 1972, because there's no way in hell you'd have me up here if you knew what my grades were. But
that's awesome.
It's just one of those things that it happened to you in life, and you didn't expect it, but it was a kind of a cherry on top of a fun life.
Yeah. All right. Last one here. We got to talk a few moments. Just our pre-talk here. It may take a few more minutes, but I mean, Randy Johnson, Zach Greinke, we got to hear some stories here. We'll start Randy and then we'll go Zach.
Well, Randy, I'll tell you what, Randy and Zach have had a lot of a lot of similarities personality wise. I mean, Randy could go all day without speaking to anybody and be the happiest guy in the world. But he did understand that, you know, he had responsibilities, especially on the day he pitched. But the one thing about Randy is don't even look up. If he walks past you in the clubhouse on the day he's pitching, don't even go, "Hey, RJ, how you doing?" Because he'll bark. I mean, he'll just bark. He's locked in. He starts locking in about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon for a 7 o'clock game.
Wow.
And after the game, if he pitched well, which was 95% of the time, you know, he was okay after the game. If he pitched poorly and was out like the 6th or 7th, which, you know, today that would be a great start. Back in the day, that was a short start for him.
Yeah.
Well, he'd go in and have a couple of Coors Lights to take the edge off. And he was actually pretty funny after those games. Nights that I was more nervous than anything going to get him to talk after a loss or not a game that was up to his standards.
Yeah.
And he was way cooler than I was. I mean, he was fine about it. The day he hit the bird in spring training, which anybody sees this can go on YouTube and see it. There's 2 stories about the bird. One is everybody asks, why is that the only video? Well, that day, it was a Saturday in Tucson. We were playing the Giants, and all the TV stations were out of town because the University of Arizona basketball program was playing in the NCAA tournament.
Oh.
So our exhibition game with the Giants didn't mean diddly poo, you know, in Tucson compared to the U of A Wildcats playing somewhere in the U.S., you know, in the tournament.
Yeah.
So there were no TV cameras in the building. There was one camera. It was our coaching camera in center field. It was a locked off, not man operated camera. It was just locked off on home plate. And our guy, Jim Currigan, our guy in the clubhouse who monitors it, I came down after Randy hit the bird, and I'm sitting there from the press box, and out of the corner of my eye, I'm distracted. I see something coming from our dugout. I thought somebody threw a ball from our dugout because it just caught the corner of my eye. And out of nowhere, this guy goes right across the line of where Randy delivered the pitch, and there was the explosion, you know, 3/4 of the way to home plate. And the carcass bounced around down by the on-deck circle. Jeff Kent picked it up and acted like he was going to eat it, and it grossed everybody out behind the first base dugout. And Rod Barajas, our catcher, didn't want to touch the baseball that rolled around behind home plate down toward the warning track. And Randy had no idea what he'd just done. I mean, he couldn't do it again in a million years. So I go down and see Jim, and I said, "Jim, I need a dub. I need a VHS tape." There were no DVDs back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need a VHS tape of Randy hitting the bird. And Jim looks at me and goes, "What the hell are you talking about?" I said, whatever inning it was, 3rd, 4th inning. I said, "Randy killed a bird." He, "What?" I said, "Run your tape back." And he runs the tape back and he sees the explosion. He goes, "Oh my God, I had no idea." I said, "I need tapes of that." So he gave me 2 dubs of it. I ran it over to Channel 10 in Tucson to make sure they had it and asked for more dubs. And we gave it to all the TV stations. And that's how it went by. Well, there was no such thing as viral back then.
Yeah.
But it got satellited up to other networks or other television stations around the country. And that's where it became famous.
ESPN's where I first saw it.
Yeah. So I go down and see Randy after he comes out of the game. And I did my old, when do you want me to get these guys down to talk to you? Because we always allowed media to come in during a game in spring training to get the starting pitcher, because the starting pitcher is not supposed to, he doesn't have to stay around. He can shower, do his exercises, shower, and get out of Dodge. And I got to make sure that the guy is at least accountable after his performance, whoever the pitcher is. And I said, "When do you want to talk?" He goes, "I'm not sure I'm going to talk to that." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "They're going to ask me about that blanking bird." And I go, "Oh yeah." I said, "Probably going to ask you about that before your 5 innings pitched and how you pitched."
Yeah.
And he goes, "I'm not talking about it." And I said, "Seriously?" He goes, "Swanee, I had nothing. What am I going to say? You know, I was aiming for him, you know, no." And I understood where he was coming from, because he's kind of pain in the corner. And sure, so he did talk, and he goes, "Look, guys, I don't want to really get into that. I mean, I hit him. I'm sorry. I feel bad because it's not intent by any way. It was just a weird thing. Let's talk about me pitching." Okay. And 3 days to the day, there was a little small story in the Tucson paper about PETA reaching out and going after Randy. And Randy comes over with the newspaper and shows it to me. He says, "This right here, this is why." And I said, I got you. I hear you, you know. But then because marketing people are marketing people, Randy ended up doing some marketing things regarding the bird. And now if you go to Randy's website for his photography business that he has now, and he's a hell of a photographer. But if you go to his website for his photography business, the logo for his website, Randy Johnson Photography, is a dead bird laying on its back with feathers all over. So he's figured it out. He figured it out. He can make good use of it. So,
oh, that's fantastic.
and then Zach and I cut a deal, and it gets serious at the outset. My first year in 07 comes off his 06 year when he walked away from the game. And it was because of the social disorder thing he had.
Yeah.
And I introduced myself the first day of camp, and I tried to name drop. I said, "Look, I just came from Arizona. I've been Randy Johnson's PR guy, Kurt Schilling's PR guy." And Zach kind of blank stares at me and says, "So," and I'm like, "Okay, that idea failed. Let's try something else." And I told him, this is my third club. I've been with other teams and done expansion, all that. He goes, "Okay." He said, "So," and I said, "Well, here's the deal. You're back. You want to pitch this year. The media is going to want to talk to you. I know it's not your favorite thing to do. I've asked enough questions around." I said, "We can do this social disorder thing two ways. One, we can set up a press conference the next day or two where you answer all the possible questions that can be asked of it. And we will point back to that interview for quotes for the rest of the year, so nobody bothers you about that. They just talk pitching." And he goes, "What's the other option?" I said, "You stand at your locker every day and somebody comes in and says, 'Hey, Zach, can I get 5 minutes with you to talk about why you walked away last year and everything?' I want option one." So, I won that battle, and we went up to and did an interview in a ballpark, spring training park. And I got the word out. I took 2 days to get the word out. If you're media and you want a piece of Zach Greinke, this is your chance. And not as many people showed up as I thought. And I'm like, and Zach says, "Somebody's going to try to get me." I said, I'm the guy that's going to stop it. From this day forward, after you do this interview today, I'm not going to let you talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
And we cut another deal that I'll explain to you in a second. So, so we get Zach in. Pedro Gomez, who was a dear friend of mine, he came for ESPN. He lived in the Arizona area anyway. The late Pedro Gomez, but he did a heck of a job of carrying a lot of the press conference. And we'd been sitting there for about 35 minutes. And I did my old, just trying to protect him a little bit. I said, "Hey, guys, a couple more and we'll get out of here." And Zach looks at me and goes, "No, I'm fine." And I'm like, I'm sitting, my brain's going, I'm not going to say this out loud. My brain's going, the guy that doesn't want to talk has just shut me down on getting out of here. So, all right, have at him. So we let him go. And then he answered anything and everything plus. And so that happened, we ended up cutting a deal where he would only talk on the day he pitched, after he pitched. So that he just didn't have traffic at his locker, because that's one of the things that Zach just didn't really like. He didn't like having somebody come up and going, "Hey, Zach, you got a minute?"
Yeah.
And then Zach would he was very comfortable in his chair, and he'd uncomfortably get up and go to the training room or go to the workout room so he could be at peace. And so we just made a deal that after he pitched that then he would talk, and he would talk about the game. And then if somebody slid in a question that wasn't social anxiety related, then so be it. But it worked. And then the year that he won the Cy Young, we stuck to that. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on the way you want to view it, we had some national writers come in because he was one of the top 3 candidates for the Cy Young. Come July and August, people were looking at this guy and going, "Yeah, the team's not great, but this guy's having a hell of a year with not a great team. And he's on the radar to win a Cy." And so they'd come in. I remember one writer with USA Today came in and said, I need to spend a couple of days with Zach. And I said, You ain't getting a couple days with Zach. I'm just telling you. He goes, I got to write this piece. I said, I know. And this is going to be awkward. But after he pitches on Tuesday night, you and he are going to go to a back room and he will spend as much time as possible with you to get all your questions out. He goes, so I can't follow him around, come to, I said, nobody follows Zach around coming to the park or anything like that. It's just not in his DNA. And finally he understood. And Zach didn't win that night. He pitched well, but he didn't win. And I went to him and I said, hey, remember the USA Today guys here? He goes, oh, yeah, I forgot. He goes, what do you want me to do? I said, go answer your questions about the game, and I'm going to hook you up with him in the hallway and send you down the hall. It's okay, fine. And so it worked. And then he goes to the Brewers, and I call my buddy Mike Swanson with the Brewers. I said, look, this is kind of how Zach operates. I just want to give you a heads up. And he says, I'm not sure he can do that here. I said, well, I'm not sure he's going to do the other thing. And Zach stuck to the every fifth day thing. And then he got to the Dodgers, and I get a call from Joe with the Dodgers. He's like, what'd you do? And I said, I got Zach to talk. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, if he had his way, he wouldn't be talking. So, take advantage of what you got and use it.
Yeah.
So then at the end of the year, I know I'm running long here, but that's what happens when you get me on one of these.
All good.
So the season ends. Jack O'Connell's the head of the baseball writers. He's the secretary of the Baseball Writers Association that votes for the postseason awards. And Jack and I had a good relationship because I had 4 Cy Young seasons with Randy, and I had a 5th one with Brandon Webb. And I had one with Mark Davis back in '88 in San Diego.
Yeah.
So I'd had some Cy Young winners. And Jack doesn't like to call the team until the morning of the announcement because he's afraid somebody's going to leak it. And I had Jack's trust. And I said, Jack, I need a favor. And he goes, yeah, what? He says, I'll tell you early. I said, you're going to need to tell me 2 days early. He goes, I can't do that. I says, well, I don't know if I can present Zach for you. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, Zach's not going to come to Kansas City for a press conference. He's already told me that. He's getting married that weekend. So I'm going to surprise Zach. I'm going to fly to Orlando where he lives. And if he wins, I'm going to fly to Orlando where he lives, and I'll be waiting for your announcement. And then I'm going to chase him down. And he goes, you think it'll work? I said, it's our only chance. So Sunday night, the announcement's Tuesday. Sunday night, Jack calls me and says, you better get on an airplane. It's okay. So Monday, I caught a plane to Orlando, hung out with Mickey and his buddies, and went and had a nice meal somewhere. And then Tuesday morning, I get the call from Jack. Do you have his phone number? I said, yeah. And here's another thing. He's not going to answer the phone. He goes, well, how am I going to tell him? I said, he'll call you back. Introduce yourself on the message. And because he's not going to answer his cell phone. If you're not in his phone, he's not answering. So, okay. So even though I told Zach that, if you win, you're going to get a phone call from Jack. So Jack calls, leaves a message. Zach calls him back immediately, tells him he won. Zach goes, thank you, and hangs up the phone. And so Jack calls me and says he knows. And he goes, Swanee, he goes, he did it exactly as you told me. And I said, that's Zach in a nutshell. So I call Zach and I said, hey, man, congratulations. Really happy for you. He says, yeah, thanks. He says, what am I supposed to do now? And I says, well, I know you're not coming to Kansas City for a press conference. So I did the next best thing. He goes, what'd you do? I said, I'm in a hotel. I'm at the Marriott at the airport in Orlando. I'm about 10 minutes from your house. He goes, no, you're not. And I said, yeah, I am. And I said, I booked a studio that's about 5 minutes from your house over by the mall in Orlando. And at 2:00, I need you in that studio to do this press conference we're going to do via satellite. Bought satellite time, the whole 9 yards. And he goes, okay. So he came, did it. I said, and it was all over. And I thanked him out in the parking lot. I said, thanks for doing that. He said, yeah, no problem. That was actually pretty easy. I said, I appreciate it. And I said, now in January, the dinner is in New York. You and Tim Lincecum and all the other award winners going to be invited to the dinner. He goes, I don't want to go to no dinner. I said, you'll be the first person that never picked up his Cy Young Award. And he goes, really? So he gave me his wife, Emily's phone number. He says, call her and make all the arrangements through her. She'll deal with everything. I said, okay. So I called Emily. I said, how would you like to go to New York for a couple of days in January? She says, I'd love to. I said, well, it's all expenses paid. And you just got to make sure you bring your husband because he's getting the Cy Young Award.
That
and
is
he showed
awesome.
up. It was cool. It was fun.
That's great. Well, we appreciate your time and we appreciate everything that you've done in Missouri, for everything that you've done with the Royals, and just taking the time out to come on here, though, too. We appreciate it. We love hearing the stories. Have to have you back on again at some point for sure, but appreciate it.
Would love to. Thanks. Well, I appreciate you asking me. This was fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Take care.
Okay. You too.
All right. We'll see you.
All right. And we bring in Chad Smith, editor for the KC Soccer Journal, host of For the Glory Kansas City at Play for 90 on X, and at For the Glory KC on X as well. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, anytime. And had Daniel on. I mentioned that I needed to bring you on, and here we are. And well, we're going to talk sporting. And after last week's whomping of St. Louis, and yeah, I mean, what were your overall thoughts on that match, and what was the biggest difference you saw in the matchup compared to the others so far?
Yeah, I won't lie. I was a little surprised. I think when I wrote the prediction piece for the game, I predicted a loss just
Oh
because
man,
I'm being, pragmatic about it.
yeah,
And they hadn't won in St. Louis, so it seemed logical that that would continue on short rest and whatnot. But obviously, it worked out pretty dang well. I'd say my biggest takeaways were that the switch of tactics. Peter surprised us.
yeah,
I did not expect that he wouldn't play his style, and there's elements of that style still out there, but they were kind of sitting back a little bit deeper and absorbing some pressure and trying to kind of catch on the counter, playing long at times. And it was like word for word what I wrote in an article. And I was like, all right, y'all, Peter Vermees reads the KC Soccer Journal. And then I just put it like a sweaty emoji because obviously that's probably not true. I don't know that Peter's online at all.
is that what got you blocked this week, or?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure what got me blocked on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it. Yeah, some St. Louis people were very fired up. Be sure to go block at Play for 90. And I was like, I'm so boring. Why are you blocking me? I'm sure I have some takes that annoy them, right? Because I'm not a fan of their team and I'm a fan of my team, but
Yeah,
I don't know. It doesn't feel block worthy. It's like some of the guys are like really going at them and picking on them a lot, and that's not really how I've done it. My favorite kind of meme that's coming out of this is, St. Louis, they invented soccer in the year 2023, and they invented everything. They're like, oh, sporting goddamn of us celebrating goals when they score. Yeah,
yeah.
that's new. It's original.
And well, you mentioned Vermees there too, and I kind of want to touch on that for a second as well. I mean, he took light at the jabs that the fans over the whole season, I mean, really made. And then just the guy was pretty positive throughout it. If you really look at his demeanor and how he does things, and the entire season just went on, and the roster coming together, and he talked about that. But how happy are you for him and what the club has done? And do you think, or did you think that they would make it to the postseason, or did you kind of just, were you one of the doubters, I guess would say?
I think everybody probably doubted them a little bit at some point. It's kind of hard not to. I remember
Yeah.
at the beginning of the season, I was telling everybody, calm down, and y'all, everybody makes the playoffs. Everybody's going to get into the into the tournament here at the end. And obviously not everybody, but they let a lot of teams in, and
Yeah.
then they did sneak in. But I won't lie, towards the end, I think it was summed up really well by one of my colleagues, Cody, over at KC Soccer Journal. He said, even though they had the best record from May 1st on, it didn't always feel like they had the best record
Yeah.
because they would lose games you weren't expecting, right? They get smoked by Miami when they're missing Messi and half their team. And
Yeah.
they'd get smoked like 3-0 by Nashville, who hadn't won a game in like 2 months or something at that point.
Yep.
So it's just weird stuff like that that never made it feel like they were doing as good as they were. But they just needed to be so perfect because they were so in such a hole from those first 10 games that
Yeah.
even though it was going really well, it didn't feel good enough because they were still so far behind, so much distance to make up. They're just being dramatic, getting there on the last day.
A little bit.
So but I'm happy. I want the team to win. I want them to be successful. It is kind of miserable, covering teams that lose all the time. It is frustrating,
It
and
is
I'm
hard.
just happy that that's not the case right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I was telling one of the current players last year that there's a record in Kansas City of postseasons just back to back. And I think it's been the last time a team up there hadn't been to a postseason was like 2009. And then after that, I mean, you had like Sporting in there, you had the Chiefs in there, the Royals made their run, and then the Current made their run last year. And I mean, it's just like everything at once just going together. And then, yeah, I mean, there's always been one. And Kansas City area has been very fortunate to get something like that because, I mean, they really do have good teams. Just a few of them aren't publicized as much. And now we're starting to catch wind of Sporting and the Current making a big splash with that stadium. And it's awesome to watch. But yeah, I mean, another thing, though, I'd like to touch on that was Polito and Kenda. And I mean, we saw this team last season with those guys out. They would have made a push if they were in, but then they join, everything goes well, and now they make an appearance to the postseason. Yeah, it was a little rough here and there, obviously, growing pains, and we saw that. But Polito signed a longer deal after all that negative talk in the preseason. Everybody wanting him to decide then and be like, hey, are you leaving? You staying? What's your status? He kind of kept low there, but we were all happy to see him sign. And then next question, do we see Kenda get a longer deal after this season ends? Because his defense has been pretty well. And then, I mean, passing the ball down the field, his pass rate is pretty good too. But what are your thoughts on that one?
Now, I'll tell you, I don't have any inside information. I wish I could tell you I knew for sure. I would like to see Gotti Kinda back. I still don't even think we have near 100% Gotti Kinda. I
No.
don't think he even has 1,000 minutes this season. He's missed so much time between the missing all of last year and then that recovery dragging well into this year.
Yeah.
But when you can tell the team is just different when he's out there. He hasn't been hitting 100% of the time, but obviously against St. Louis, he looked remarkable. That goal, oh my gosh, that was a ridiculous goal.
That was
But
good.
I'm not sure if he'll come back. To get a little wonky for a second, the roster rules in Major League Soccer are very complicated.
Yep.
And right now he's a designated player, so you can have 3 players that basically make an unlimited amount of money. His contract is not that big though. The reason that he's a DP is because they paid $4 million, give or take, to buy him from the Israeli league.
Yeah.
And so if they can keep him around and not have him be a designated player, I think that'd be ideal. Keep him near, or maybe give him a little raise or something. And then you have the chance to go add yet another superstar to this team. That would be pretty remarkable. But Peter talked about it after the game against St. Louis, how Gotti hasn't quite been himself the last few weeks. And it's understandable because of all the stuff going on in Israel. He's got family
yeah.
over there and, all the war and missiles and kidnappings and awful, terrible things going on.
Yeah.
So there is talk that maybe he'd want to go back, but I haven't heard it from anybody official, just kind of rumblings in the background and
Understandable.
blogs and comments and things like that.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I brought it up too. I mean, I heard those rumblings as well. And like, you want to go back, you want to help your country, you want to help your people, you want to be with family, you want to make sure they're okay. And then you're just sitting over here worried as all get out with everything going on. I was like, kudos to him for being able to get that goal. Hopefully his family got to see it. Hopefully he did it for them, obviously. And I think he did some kind of tribute during the game, and I couldn't quite tell what it was, but after he got the goal, they kind of went away from his celebration, and I think he had something aimed towards that, and I don't know if anybody really noticed it, but I kind of caught it in the celebration video. But yeah, I don't know. Not much being said about that either. So, but
Yeah, I don't know. I know that the league had even put something out too about not allowing fans to bring in like new flags and things like that for like Israel and Palestine and whatnot. But there is an Israeli flag like in the South Stand at Children's
yeah,
Mercy Park. It was always there because they have a flag for all the different players' countries. There's a Scottish flag for Johnny Russell and so on and so forth.
yeah,
But uh, it's tough, right? Because it's like a controversial subject and it's war. And I always just think about the innocent people over there, and hopefully that we can kind of protect them on all sides. And
yeah,
and obviously the terrorists, we won't go too deep into that. Can't really
yeah.
support that though. Hard to get
No,
behind
it's
that.
crazy.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And well, speaking of that, now I want to go talk the game this weekend. I mean, do you think there's any factors that could go against Kansas City's momentum in this matchup? And if so, what do you think those will be? Because I mean, they, like you said, tactically came out and changed it up, and they did great. But now that St. Louis knows kind of what they're capable of, anything there?
I kind of worry that Peter will overthink it and try to do something different. And, maybe he goes back to the way they played all year long. They did win 2-1 and the only other home game they had against St. Louis, but it was a really close game. And I think they dominated, frankly. Like St. Louis weren't in the game at all last weekend. And there's no reason they shouldn't have been. They were rested. Sporting weren't rested. They had the best record in the Western Conference. Sporting was the, next to last team to sneak into the playoffs there.
Yeah.
And I don't know why you'd go away from what worked. I was saying this the other day on my podcast that you can always switch back into your tactics, but I'd say go in there and repeat what you were doing. Just sit back a little bit. Don't make the mistakes and the turnovers that St. Louis is looking to capitalize on and get their kind of odd man rushes, their weird situations where players pass to them in the box or pass back to them. I mean, Fontes had one in the last game that was in St. Louis before the playoffs, passed it right to a player in front of the net and they scored immediately. Try to avoid those mistakes. And I don't know that St. Louis has a team that is technical enough to break you down. Obviously, they're going to change. They're going to do something different to make sure that they are, not getting run over again. But I don't know why if it isn't broke, right? Isn't that the expression? You don't need to fix it.
Yep, don't fix it. But all right. That being said, final score prediction and what is the prediction for the match and what will the final score be? I should rephrase it there to that. There we go.
Okay. Wes, I hate making predictions. I'm going to tell you that I like to pick against Sporting because I'm not a superstitious person at all, but I swear when I pick them to win, something goes wrong and they screw it up for me. I'm like, oh, dang it. I shouldn't have had confidence in you because you guys let me down. But I don't see why they shouldn't win this game. As I said, I don't want to jinx them. I think they are set up. They're at home. They're going to have that raucous crowd. They can play a style that can be advantageous to them and, at a disadvantage for St. Louis. So I feel like if they don't get it done in Kansas City, I'm very nervous if they have to go back to St. Louis next weekend. I did a spot with the St. Louis radio guys, and they're like, well, maybe we'll see you on the 11th. And I was like, I sure hope we don't see you on the 11th. I hope we're having a bye week and we're waiting for round 2 of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that whether they win it in regulation or we go to the brick wall that is known as Tim Melia and PKs, that Sporting somehow get it done in advance and they sweep St. Louis out of the playoffs.
Okay. And let's hope that the Wiz, the original guy, the OG, and Peter Vermees comes up with some good tactics too. Because I mean, he's been there, he's done it, he's played it, he's coached it. I mean, what else can you ask for? I mean, I honestly feel like he's seen it all as a coach, and he really is a good mind to have. And he called it all season. His plan's coming to fruition at the moment, and I hope that they can ride in on that too. So, same thing. I'll say the same thing. But
yeah, I said something at one point during the season while Sporting were really bad, and they were in that 10-game run where they didn't win any games. And I said, y'all, I know you're not going to believe this, but I think this is actually the best Sporting Kansas City team that's ever been assembled.
Yeah.
And, it's different across eras, right? Because when you look back at 2013, that team played kind of ugly and they beat people up and, they won the MLS Cup. It's great, right? But I think this team crushes that team. The talent level in the league is just so much higher now. And people were like, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. And what would be really satisfying is if they came all the way from the basement of the league 10 games in and went all the way back and won the whole dang thing. So I'm not saying that's going to happen. They're very hard. They have to win a lot of games on the road after this one. This will definitely be their last home game unless the Red Bulls pull off some miracle and we host MLS Cup. So we'll see.
Yeah, indeed. Well, glad to have you on, and we'll hope for good luck here and go into the game.
Oh, absolutely. I'll be there. Are you going to be there?
Oh, I wish. I
Bit of
got
a drive
baby
for
duty
you,
this
I know.
weekend, so.
Oh, and it's Sunday, so that'd be hard to get back too, right?
Baby duty Sunday. Wife's going out with a friend. I already gave her permission, so. But
what can you do? But yes, I will be there. Oh, I can't miss it. Last home game of the year, potentially, most likely. So got to see it.
All right. Well, take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me, Wes. Take care.
Bye. Yeah, and great stuff out of them. And good luck to Sporting this weekend. Big upset. Big upset. And St. Louis City coming to Kansas City this weekend. We'll hopefully get a good match out of that. And then, as always, pleasure talking to Mike Swanson and everything that he did with the Royals and other organizations. It's phenomenal to see that the championship runs that followed him wherever he went. So that was pretty cool. We'll head into the local sports update brought to you by Trackside Burgers. They're open at 1515 West 10th Street in Joplin. Go get a brisket monster patty, cheese, fried mac bites, crispy onions, barbecue, ranch over the pickles and onions, and all that on a toasted bun. And I mean, I'm hungry just speaking about that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, COC change. We'll briefly touch on this. And Tony, your thoughts here. I mean, you played in the COC. I never got to, but to see it expand to this extent, your thoughts here.
Right. Well, the COC, it did used to have like a small conference and a large conference. Whenever I was in high school, it was still like that.
Yeah.
But Web City was in the big conference. That was really the only one that anybody even talked about. Maybe just because that's where I grew up. But now that it's one big conference with the East and West, I find it really interesting. I think it got a whole lot more competitive.
Yeah.
I do find it interesting that they have it split up like that. I think that they should do it. I feel like they should still kind of play each other though.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure they'll find some sort of way to do that. But then I feel like that eliminates the purpose of having East and West conferences.
Yeah, it does.
But I think it'd be more interesting if 1 year Web City plays Nixa, and the next year they play Lebanon instead.
Sure.
I just think it'd be interesting, and I don't know. That makes more sense to me. Otherwise, why make it bigger and have an East and West?
Yeah. And then football, it's like, weren't there like 7 in each conference, and then you get a couple of games that are, so you would probably play 2 of the teams in the other conference each year?
I mean, yeah, that would make sense, but
Essentially. Yeah.
right. Yeah. But, and I find it interesting because Neosho, they were contemplating going to the Ozark Mountain Conference,
Yeah.
aka the JV conference.
Uh-huh.
And so they did a survey on their school district website or
Yeah.
on Facebook. And I'm assuming that people wanted to stay in an actual competitive conference.
True.
Because the Ozark Mountain Conference at the time actually had Parkview.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they have Hillcrest yet, but at least
Oh
it was
man,
top.
Hillcrest has just gone on a downhill slope since the Beckham Green brothers left there.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, they haven't really been very good since probably
2010.
16.
Oh yeah,
Well,
2010
when
for me. That's the last time I saw him competitive. But
Dorio Green Beckham, I think, graduated in 12.
yeah, so yeah, around 12. Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, go ahead and head into the 2-minute warning brought to you by Hot Stone Pizzeria. Not feeling like cooking this weekend? Go grab some pizza by the slice over there, Tuesday through Saturday. And yeah, they're open on Sundays now. So good stuff. Good stuff. And it's time for picks. We'll get that timer up there. We'll get it started. And yeah, we're only doing high school this week just because it's playoff time. And well, here we go. Joplin heads to the Pooh. Who you got?
I'm going to go with the Pooh.
Okay.
I'll go Joplin.
Oh, this one's hard because Kickapoo is very good this year. Alma mater, gotta go Joplin. Gotta go Joplin. Web City hosts Belton. Who you got?
Web City.
I'm going Web.
I'll go opposite this week. Belton. I'll go Belton. Hey, CJ won a playoff game. And yeah, they'll be hosting Harrisonville. Who you got? It's 2 in a row, by the way, that they've hosted. Didn't know. That was interesting.
That is interesting. I don't know. Harrisonville, historically has had decent teams. So it won't be easy, but I'm going to go with Carl Junction on this one. I have faith in them.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
probably play better teams all year long.
I'm going CJ because you said that they're at home, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they are. They're supposed to be.
Yeah. If they're playing at home, CJ.
I've been proven wrong on the Misha website, but hey. I don't really know what competition Harrisonville's played this year, so I'll go CJ this week. Last week I went against him, so let's go CJ. Let's go. And on that note, we are at the end of another episode. The music is here, and yeah, so it's the end of another episode for Tony, Jensen, Clint, and myself. Have a great and safe weekend. Make sure you guys go get some Ghetto tacos before your game this weekend. Friday nights, 10% off burritos. You can get in this weekend. You can get in if you can get in. If not, Taco Tuesday, Thirsty Thursday, 1 drink free per entree. But yeah, y'all have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week on the Sports Timeout.